Good morning, good morning, good morning. Greetings, everyone. I hope we are all on the call. If there's someone who has forgotten to be on the call, please send them the link, remind them, do something about it. Remind them that today is prosperity for your soul. Good morning. My name is Mahlatsi Mdluli, and I am here to do prosperity for your soul. And my topic for this morning is the importance of accountability. So, before I start, I just want you to put on the chats good morning, say something to me, respond to me, and tell us where you are listening from, where are you watching from. And yeah, if you're at the office, say I'm at the office. Not just the country where you are, but say that I am in Pretoria, South Africa, but I'm at the office. I'm on my way to work. I'm driving to work. Yeah, just interact with me and tell me exactly where you are right now while we wait for others to just join on the call. But while we are waiting, I'm going to just give you the announcements. So on this 7:30 Mentorship Academy call, we have on Mondays Rev Walter, and on Tuesdays we have Mindset Change with Dr. Sylvia, and then on Wednesdays we have Market Day, and on Thursdays we have Prosperity for Your Soul with Dr. Nellie, and today we have our very own Coach Mahlatsi for Prosperity for Your Soul. And then on Fridays, we have the Healthy Tip with Dr. Jackie. So, yes, good morning. Good morning, Cynthia. It's so good to hear from you. Good morning, Phyllis. Good morning. Good morning. Hetfield. Oh, wow. Interesting. I'm in Pretoria, Equestria. Yes, sort of Silver Lake-ish border to Equestria. Yeah. So it's amazing to hear from someone who's a neighbor. Good morning, Lukundo, Coach Lukundo. It's good to see you here. Yeah. So yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for interacting with me this morning. I'm just going to go straight into the discussion for the day. Today I'm talking about something that's very close to my heart. It's rather a very sensitive topic. I don't know how, yeah, you can't even imagine how it's actually sensitive to me because it's just accountability, right? Yeah. But it's not just the importance of accountability for me, but it actually reminded me of something that I felt was so sensitive about my own life that I sort of am still working on it, but I felt like it's important for me to share my journey, even though I know I have not perfected it, but to just share it with someone who could possibly not even be aware that they haven't been as accountable as they thought they are, and maybe they can actually think about reviewing where they are and making the decision to actually do something different about it. So like I said, for those who are just joining us now, my name is Mahlatsi Mdluli, and I am a businesswoman. I am a wife, a mother of 6, pause for reaction. And then I am a UN Global Woman of Distinction Award winner. And what else can I say about myself? And I'm a founder of an NPO called Blended Circle because we minister to blended families, because I am in a blended family. If you were here yesterday, I was talking about adaptability with patience, and I was referring a lot to my blended family dynamics. I talked about a lot of things, but today I'm going to talk about the importance of accountability. So please type in the chats and say the importance of accountability. Say accountability, accountability. So accountability is being responsible for your decisions or actions and expected to explain them when you're asked. So I would want to even twist it to say and expected to actually find yourself in a session where you are explaining them so that you are able to sort of reflect back and look at where you are. I look at accountability as something that actually brings some kind of awareness to you. So it validates your thoughts. It sort of makes you see where you are. So even when you are in your own thoughts alone, when you start being there's levels of accountability, of course, and when we talk about accountability, it's in many ways. It could be that you can sit in a session with someone and start explaining some of the things that you've done towards a specific goal, because you also can't account without a goal in mind, because then what are you accounting for? What are you going to say you did against what? So that's very important to note, that you have to have a goal in mind for us to even talk about accountability. And accountability is like a mirror. I believe that it's like a mirror. You get to see exactly what's going on. What have you been working on? You're able to account for everything. You take a moment to look into what you've been busy with and what it has been able to do for you, and what is taken from you and what's adding into you. So you are able to sort of, reprioritize your life whenever you take the time to account for anything that you do. So I'm going to talk about how upbringing has affected my sense of accountability. And this is why I said, to me, it's like such a sensitive topic, because it reminded me of how I was brought up. I am growing up at 7. I think my parents separated when I was 7. And I remember, 7 is such an early age. It's basically the beginning of your life in a way. You start learning certain things from that age. You start being able to do certain things even at school, And for some reason, during that time, there wasn't, I believe that there wasn't a lot of accountability in terms of my parents towards us as children. I don't know. I was 7 after all. But I felt like from that time, things happened to me a lot. So it's like life was just happening. I felt like people make decisions and I just get in for the ride, and I just find myself in situations. I started stumbling into situations and never really getting the opportunity for me to determine where I want to go. So I felt like I was on that ride for a very long time in my life. It went on like that for a very long time, I promise you. Yesterday, if you were on the call, you will note that I talked about a business loss. And that's what I really want to focus on today, as a result of, just not having a sense of accountability or understanding what accountability is all about. So I'm here to talk about that to a specific business person, a person who's at work, who's working for a company and just finds themselves going with the motions of life and not being aware really that life is just happening to you and you haven't learned how to happen to life. I want you to put on the comments how to happen to life. You must happen to life. Life is not supposed to happen to you. And this is important for us to note, because sometimes life happens, that's true. However, you must always find yourself where you try and bring yourself together and happen to it, because it can take you anywhere it wants to take you. And this is to say that as a result, at some point in my life, I went into boarding school. I was young. When I went into boarding school, I was hardly 11 years old. And even there, life was just happening to me. Life was just doing what it wants to do. I was never empowered to a point where someone tells me that, Mahlatsi, it's okay for you to choose something. It's okay for you to say you don't want this. And I remember that I was raised in such a way that you couldn't ask why something was happening, because everyone just felt, no, you have to do what we tell you to do. And it's either you say sorry, or you say thank you, or you say please. There's nothing else that you're allowed to do, because if you wanted to say why, you were actually seen as ungrateful in a way. So that made me a person who was more scared to always interrogate stuff. So I was always running away from anything that confronts anything. So you can imagine that if you never confront anything, that means your sense of accountability is almost close to zero, basically. If you're not able to get yourself to a place where you know you have a right to ask why this, why that, then your sense of accountability might just be, non-existent, I can tell you. So I just remember that because of that, I could never get myself to question stuff or even have a conversation with people. I mean, I was bad with relationships, and I think I spoke about this yesterday, that relationships were so hard for me because I just didn't know how to interact with you. If you were confronting an issue, I ran away as quickly as possible because I just didn't understand. I didn't know what to do with confrontation. I didn't know what to do with any conflict. Whenever conflict, anything that smells like conflict to me, I run the other way. And I know that as I grew older, I got into a place where I started, I went to varsity at some point, eventually, and I went into varsity very young. That's another thing. So I was in varsity already. When I was 16, I was in varsity. And even then, no one prepared me for what I was walking into. No one sat me down. I had no sense of parenting, nothing, no sense of a figure of authority that says, okay, Mahlatse, now this is what's going to happen to you. This is what you need to do. This is the thing that will, come against you. So, this is how you should try and navigate that. Nothing, none whatsoever. And I remember that because of that, life was just, but it continued to happen. And it was so bad that I started my national diploma at the time, and I didn't finish it. On my third year, because life became a little hard, I started working on my third year of my national diploma when I was supposed to be completing. And I found myself not completing my national diploma. Didn't tell anyone that I'm not finishing it. I just found a job and I went straight for it, and I started running in terms of job. And that's how the story of how I started my business comes into place. So during that time, I met someone who was running their own company, and I happened to just join them as they were starting. And then I worked with them. And because I'm not self-aware, I'm not accountable to anyone at the time, I find myself basically volunteering my name to have shareholder, to have shares in the company. Because if you're a South African, you'll know Black woman-owned companies. I mean, I'm talking about some time back. That's over 15 years ago already. Not even, yes, it's now 15 years ago, over 15 years ago. Black woman-owned companies at the time were getting business without negotiations. And so I was youth, so I was young, and then I was Black, and I'm a woman. So I didn't know what that meant because I didn't have a sense of identity, a sense of who I was and what my name meant. I volunteered my name into papers that belonged to someone. And, to some extent, this was a blessing in my life, yes. However, there was so much that went wrong as a result because, once again, it's the happenings of life while you are not able to account for the steps your life is taking. So this really raised me up as a business person. It brought that aspect of me alive, and I saw myself thrive so well in just pushing and getting work done. I mean, the success was tangible. You could see we were running around, we were doing what needs to be done, and God was faithful. But here's the thing. The person resigned eventually. He was much older than me, the partner. And he resigned at some point, and that was it for me. And I remember that I had to decide to save the company in the state that it was. So it was already working on a negative at the time. But the moral of the story is that I started making decisions because now I was on my own. I was alone and I was young, and I was counting millions already at the time. But I was young, no sense of accountability, nothing. And I just remember that during that time, I started heavily relying on people like accountants and lawyers and things like that. I started heavily depending on that, but I wouldn't really talk about my decision making. But I remember that just to inspire myself to work harder in the business, the immediate decision I made was to buy the next Mercedes Benz because I could, and I put myself on that, commitment, not explaining anything to nobody, not really finding counsel, nothing. I didn't have anyone in my life like that. And I was just going on just like that. And I want to say to you, with that story that I'm giving you right now, I know that right now we have a lot of opportunities of just registering businesses from scratch. There's a lot of us who are registering businesses and we're sole owners of our business. Who are you accounting to concerning your business? What are you, what are you holding yourself accountable to? And who are you holding accountable to, yourself accountable to? Because it's so important for you to understand that you need to get that out of the way. Like if you don't have anyone that you sometimes sit down with concerning the very business that you registered, please, I want to encourage you to please go ahead and pray about it. I mean, God will show you who you are supposed to be accounting to. Sometimes right here in this space that we find ourselves in, there are people that God can show you that talk to this person, they have this expertise. Talk to this other person, they have this expertise. So I thought about this so much of late, where after having gone through the liquidation, because my business was liquidated eventually. I mean, the time is too short for me to even try and explain to you how far a lot of things went. I was driving the biggest cars you can think about. When I talk about that first Mercedes, that's small. I mean, I went to the next one. I was one of those people that, young as I was, I used to drive into a mall or something, and my car was, when it showed up, everyone had to reserve some parking that was not meant for everyone. So you can almost imagine what I'm talking about. So I'm telling you a story of a young girl who had access to so much, but because there was no understanding of identity, no self-awareness, no understanding of how her upbringing might have affected her into the person that she has become, nothing. Because of all of that, the choices I made have brought me to a place where I was happy to release my business, to just let it go, because I was tired, because it was driving me insane. So I wasn't just enjoying the benefits of driving the big cars and whatnot, but the stress that came with that almost killed me. It almost just, I don't know how to explain. I was just not in touch with myself. I never got to know who I was. I was just there rolling on some level of, I don't know, of high. So today I'm talking about my story because I want you to know that if you thought just registering your own company was the sense of freedom that you needed, there is more. That business is an entity that you are responsible for, you are accountable for. So you need to understand that your business is meant to serve other people. It's not just meant to serve you. It's meant to serve other people. A business is like a ministry. That's what I believe. A business is like a ministry. So if you are the sole owner of that business, find a way to build some kind of a board of people that you can be accountable to. Because at the time, I remember that, because I was the sole owner of my company, I mean, there was a lot. I mean, I was young and I had accountants. I had an accountant, I had a lawyer, but I didn't understand that there was an importance for me to get to know and understand my business for myself. And what I mean by that is this. It's not like I didn't know the ins and outs of my business, but the problem was that I did not empower myself enough. Yesterday, if you were on the call yesterday, you will note that I talked about eating. So I want to elaborate on the eating today as well. I talked about eating, and the eating I was referring to was for you to empower yourself. Empower yourself with knowledge. Eat, honey. Eat the word. Eat knowledge. Eat what you need for the journey that's coming ahead of you. I referred to the book of First Kings, chapter 19, where Prophet Elijah was running away from Jezebel and found himself there in the bush trying to figure out what must happen with his life, basically feeling a bit hard done by life because he was basically being pursued to be killed. And how the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said that, arise, eat, the first time. And he ate. He was fed, ate, finished. As he was sleeping again, the angel of the Lord appeared again the second time and said, hey, arise, eat, for the journey ahead of you is great. The journey ahead of you is great. If you have a big vision, if you have this great idea that you believe is meant to be a success, it's meant to be something that's going to serve not just people around you, but nations, arise and eat. I want to emphasize on that, and I believe that there's something there. Arise and eat. Put on the comment section, arise and eat. Arise and eat. There's a neglection that I did at some point when I was supposed to empower myself. I understood my business for its technicalities, but I always thought I'm not an accountant, so I don't have to understand accounting. So I go into a consultation with an accountant, but I don't understand what to expect from them. I don't have the basic knowledge of what accounting is supposed to look like. Just understanding an income statement, just understanding what a balance sheet is all about, just understanding what a liability and an asset looks like. Just understanding that was not a thing for me at the time. And I remember sitting, because the reason why I say arise and eat, I'm not saying you must be an expert in every area, because that's not the point. What's the point of then hiring all these people? You can hire these people to then be the experts in those areas, but you must have some level of knowledge of what to expect from them. Because I remember that I was advised again and again, for tax purposes, you must buy this. And I'm sure I have accountants that are on this call right now that are thinking about, yeah, this could be true, but there's this area that you must be mindful of. That's true. And I really respect everyone's expertise. But I want to say to you, business owner, that the business is yours to run. The business is yours. You are entrusted by God with that business. There's a grace, a particular grace upon your life for that particular business. And you must not neglect your post. Don't neglect where you are supposed to occupy. Because if you leave that responsibility to another person, you're going to run this thing to the ground. So I want you to understand that everyone has their agenda. So everyone comes in, and as they're busy with their expertise in your space, in your business, they all have their own goal in mind as well. So you must understand that, and understand how do you benefit from all these people that are coming into your space with their goals, so that you can all help each other succeed. But at the same time, you make sure that you have an understanding of what the expectation should be from the person that is doing business with you. Because I remember being told that, I made examples. Yesterday I was referring to the fact that I'm in a blended family because I got married the second time. And I understood that, I remember that when I went through divorce, there was so much happening when it comes to the lawyer having to put together a settlement agreement and things like that. And I realized that in that process, everyone represents their own goal. What are you representing when you bring this thing to the experts? Because I remember that thinking about my children, someone had to represent them, because we can't just represent the two people that are in the room and we're saying, you take that, no, that one must take that. And in the midst of all of that, no one is thinking about, how is this thing affecting the kids? How is this thing supposed to benefit the kids? So there are things like that that make me say what I'm saying today, that even in the midst of the experts that surround you, please have a basic knowledge and understanding of your numbers. They're very important. A business cannot succeed when you don't have an understanding of your numbers. So, in conclusion, I want to say that as you eat all of that, you must understand that God has given you a special grace, a special access into your business. There is divine vision that He has entrusted on your life concerning that particular business. So you are the one who has a responsibility to discern the voice of God concerning even what looks like a correct fact, even what looks like it's right in the mind of the person who has done the calculations. There is a discernment that is higher, that is deeper, that is required from you as the owner in whether or not you are supposed to take that route. I'll make an example. I had an accountant that I fired, yes, at the time, who said to me, looked at the numbers and said to me, oh, according to me, they're analyzing this situation, your business can close within the next 2 months. When I looked at the situation, the numbers that he was presenting, it was pretty much true that the business might not survive the next 2 months. The very same business that he was referring to survived the next 8 years, by the way. But that 2 months, I had to discern from the Spirit of God, because I remember that I heard God say, take it on. I need you to sustain this thing for a while. I want to teach you something. That's what God told me when I first took on the challenge to just continue with the business, even in the state that it was in, because I thought I was not good enough. But He said, I'll give you the grace you require to do this. And the accountant, all the facts were there. It was true. He said, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And I agree, I understand. However, discernment of the Spirit said to me, nope, this accountant might not necessarily be good for the journey that you're about to embark on because of, I don't know, the nature of the situation. So I had to fire him, and God gave me another one. However, I just know that sitting with experts in my business who would tell me this is what's right, this is what's wrong, was not enough. I understood that I had to find it in me also to study some of the things, get the basics. So I'm saying to you to say, please get to know your business. Numbers are important for the success of your business. Get to understand the technicalities of your business. Do not slip on your business. You're a sole owner. The temptation for you not to be accountable is there. So help yourself and find a way to be accountable to someone concerning that business, because you're going to be able to then leave a legacy that you want to leave. Because most of us think we are building generational businesses, but the approach does not inform what we are saying about what we are building. So please make time to pray about this. If God has not shown you already, if you have not seen anyone already, pray about which direction to go in terms of accountability. Accountability is so important. It speaks to how far you can go with this thing. The importance of discerning the voice of God and having the spiritual sounding board is too high as well in accounting. So accountability is like, I feel like it's more like therapy also at the same time. While it raises your sense of self-awareness, there's so much more that it gives you. It empowers you to increase the performance of whatever it is that you're doing. So please, do yourself a favor. Be accountable to someone concerning that business where you are 100% shareholder. Have a fruitful day ahead of you. It was really nice to be here. And yeah, I hope that you learned something, even from my personal story and the pointers that I gave here. So have a nice day. And Dr. Nellie, much love to you. Thank you, team. Thank you, Rev Walter. Thank you to everyone who was in the background and supporting me. So don't forget, we'll see you tomorrow for Healthy Tips with Dr. Jackie. Thank you so much.
Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you, Dr. Sylvia. So it's gonna stop on its own, eh? All right. Are you able to stop the call?
Uh, no. I don't know what has happened to Rev.
Oh, okay. Let me just check if it's still on this side.
It is on. Mhm.
Oh, apologies for that, everyone. We're trying to figure out how to end the call.
Yes, continue speaking until I've sent I've sent a
Oh,
message
okay.
to the, yes. Just
All
keep
right.
on talking so that it doesn't just,
It's
yeah.
fine. It's fine. Well,
Continue
anyway,
speaking
yes.
uh, about just that accounting bit. It's so useful for everyone.
Yeah, okay. It's fine. I actually have quite a lot to say. So, yeah, but anyway, I think just to conclude, um, I want to actually get to this point while we are waiting for Rev to help us with ending the call. I want us to go and reflect on some few things. Dr. Sylvia, can you please mute yourself? Okay, great. Thank you. So I wanted to say that, can you please go and reflect on a few things? So there's forms of accountability, like I talked about. There's levels of accountability, different types. So you have a level where you can see a therapist. There are people who do very well in accounting for their emotions through a therapist. And then there's also accountability for what you hear, what you believe you hear spiritually. And the reason why I say this is because I remember that when I was when I was thinking that I hear certain things from God, I realized that some of it was because I was afraid. Like the first time I bought the Mercedes Benz, it's a joke. When I first thought, okay, let me buy a Mercedes Benz so that I can be committed, because the responsibility was too much for me and I was young. And I remember thinking to myself that I need to buy something that will commit me to this journey. And the reason why I say that is because it was on credit. So that meant because I had a monthly obligation, which I didn't have at the time, then I'll be forced to do what I'm supposed to do. And I remember doing that from that place. And I thought God gave me that idea. while I felt like it worked because it sort of inspired me to work to have the life I want to have, in a way, the comfort I wanted to have. What was funny about that situation was that I felt like there was no way for me to be accountable, voluntarily, because I didn't know what accountability looked like, because I had never been accountable to anyone. I had never had an honest conversation with my parents, any of my parents, and asking, why did this happen? How do you think that could have happened better? I didn't have any of that. So I felt like I thrived on obligation more than I thrived on obligation and obedience more than voluntary working with someone and accounting to them. So that's what I did. I kept trapping myself into situations that must force me to work harder. So I didn't know how to initiate that in me. So the situation always forced me. I always allowed myself to get into situations that forced me to work harder, to do something about my life. Because that's what I said in the beginning. When my parents went through a divorce, I was going through the motions. Life was just happening to me. So there was never a time where I felt like I had the opportunity to initiate something. I was always reacting to something. So I always managed to put myself under a situation that was forcing me to then work harder and be responsible in a way, but without looking at the aspect of setting a goal and being accountable to it. I'm telling you stories so that you can reflect on your life and see how it might have affected how you account for your life now. Because sometimes you're not even aware that the relationship you have with the concept of accountability or anything really, it's as a result of the person that you've become, that you were not aware that it was as a result of a situation. Because I thought that's how I am, you know. I even related to God in the same way. Like how I relate with God was, I have to make sure that he's happy with me. I have to make sure that I don't disappoint him. If I felt like he's the one who gave me this, then I must work hard to please God, to make sure that he knows that I am worth it. Like I want him to know that I'm worth the trouble. So yeah, it's funny how I related with everything as a result of where I came from, as a result of how I was brought up. So now my relationship with God has changed altogether. And I'm telling you so that you reflect. My relationship with God has changed altogether. Having gone through that loss, when things got really hard, there was a time when I started feeling like I don't know, I must start asking God why certain things are happening in my life. Something I couldn't get myself to do. I was never the kind of a person who felt I was allowed to even say, God, why? How is this thing working? Why is it working the way it's working out? And not even from a place of saying, why would you allow me to fall or whatever? That was not the point. But I was always afraid to even think about the word why. I was afraid. And now I've learned how to sit down and say, okay, Lord, I don't understand this and I need you to clarify it for me because